Shalom, family. Lots and lots happening in Israel. Why? Why is that important? Because Israel is God's prophetic clock. When that clock started ticking again for the first time in 2,000 years, in 1948, everybody should have woken up and taken notice and started looking at the skies, because the final generation, Ha'akaron, had begun. And everything that happens in Israel is directly tied to everything that's happening in the world prophetically as we lead up to that final week. So let's have a look at just the news from the last few days, which is insane. There's so much news, and I'm touching just a portion of it that's going on around Israel, that people are not glued to Israel right now, watching and seeing what's happening is beyond me, because there is so much happening in Israel. Saudi Arabia says they won't recognize Israel without a Palestinian state. This according to MBS, the Crown Prince. Mohammed bin Salman on Wednesday said the kingdom wouldn't recognize Israel without the Palestinian state, and strongly condemned the crimes of the Israeli occupation against Palestinian people. The kingdom will not stop its tireless work towards the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as the capital, and we affirm that the kingdom will not establish diplomatic relations with Israel without that, said MBS. So a couple of things. The crimes of the Israeli occupation. He's saying you don't belong there, and everything you do to defend yourself is a crime. He doesn't say the crimes of Hamas or the crimes of the terror attacks against Israeli civilians. No, the crimes of the Israeli occupation against the Palestinians. How about the terrorist attacks against the Israelis? How about any of that? So yeah, it's what I more or less expected from MBS on the issue. He's got a watch that his support base supports him as he rises to power at this time in the Muslim Islamic world. Finland's president explains decision to purchase Israeli arms and not recognize Palestine. President Stubb emphasized values-based realism in arms deal and stance on Palestinian recognition. Finland's President Alexander Stubb defended his government's decision to purchase Israeli arms while delaying recognition of an independent Palestinian state, citing security needs and a pragmatic foreign policy approach. Finland is inquiring about Israel's David Sling missile defense system, and they are going to purchase it, which Stubb described as essential for Finland's defense in light of Russia's ongoing missile attacks in Ukraine. Guy's got his head screwed on straight. That makes sense. He's worried about his people. The best weapon defensive system at the moment happens to come from the place that everybody wants to wipe out, Israel. While other Nordic nations like Sweden, Iceland, and Norway have recognized Palestine, Stubb says Finland would do so only when it could help advance a two-state solution and foster peace in the Middle East. So, very pragmatic and clever politician, and he's worried about his people, and he's going to keep dealing with Israel and purchasing his weapon system from them, because that is the best weapon system for his people's safety and security. Peace and security. Sudden destruction. American taxpayers fund Hezbollah terrorist memorial in Dearborn. Islamic media and tax-exempt mosque commemorate Muslim martyr. Welcome to the new America. On Sunday, September 22nd, 2024 at 3 p.m., in a shocking misuse of taxpayer funds, the Islamic Institute of Knowledge, a mosque in Dearborn, Michigan, held a memorial service for Hezbollah jihadi Fadel Abbas Bazi, openly promoted by Dearborn.org, as they honor a terrorist celebrated as a martyr by Hezbollah, raising critical concerns about the unchecked promotion of Islamic terrorism on U.S. soil. Really? It's an openly terrorist organization. It's committing chaos at the moment against civilians, and this terrorist is being celebrated on taxpayer funds in America. And you wonder why I say time's up The seconds are even gone. We're just waiting for a trumpet sound. Belgian Deputy Prime Minister faces backlash after labeling Hezbollah pager explosions a terrorist attack. Belgian Deputy Prime Minister Petra de Sutter condemned the Hezbollah pager explosions in Lebanon and Syria, describing the incident as a terrorist attack. I strongly condemn the massive terror attack in Lebanon and Syria, which injured thousands of people, a brutal escalation of violence. Silence is not an option. An international investigation is called for. The bloodshed must end, she wrote on X. This is a response to her. Not a single tweet condemning Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Houthis. And now this. With people like you in power in Europe, we don't even need enemies. Might as well invite Hamas to Europe and beg them to rape and murder all of us. National Security and Foreign Policy researcher Khaled Hassan responded on social media. It's absolutely twisted how evil the leadership of the day is right now in the world. And they are fed and molded and programmed by the young leaders, all these organizations, the WEF, the United Nations. They're preparing an evil and dark leadership pre-programmed and disposed against Israel in preparation to serve their one master, their president of earth, if you will, that is in the wings and waiting for a restrainer to be removed. This, now that we're on the pages, this can be seen as a declaration of war, Nasrallah said as Israeli jets flew low over Beirut. Hezbollah chief called the coordinated explosions a declaration of war, a massacre, and a genocide that broke all rules during his speech. Israeli jets during the speech continue to fly low over Beirut as a threat. Now, they like to throw this word genocide around these days for anything. So they got hit really hard by Israel in a coordinated and long-termed out plan. The way they assembled these pages and radios all over the world in different companies, put them together and got them sent to them for this operation. Really well coordinated and long thinking. That attack on them and their fellow terrorists is now genocide. That's not what genocide means. That is how much they throw the word genocide around against Israel, just as a mockery all the time, and people jump on that. Key Hezbollah leader and commanders killed in strike on Lebanon, says Israel. The leader and his entire chain of command were killed in an Israeli strike in Beirut on Friday, according to the IDF. Ibrahim Akil, a senior member of Hezbollah and the target of the strike in southern Beirut, was killed according to the Israeli army. Top operatives and the chain of command of the Ridwan unit were also killed in the strike. Akil and the commanders who were killed were allegedly planning to occupy Galilee in what Israel claimed would have been similar to Hamas' October 7 attack. Hezbollah also confirmed that the senior commander was killed by the Israeli strike on Friday. Then radios too. Second wave of mysterious explosions rocked Lebanon as communication devices again blew up across the country. A second wave of mysterious explosions occurred across the country of Lebanon and especially the capital Beirut. The Lebanese Health Ministry reported at least 14 killed and 450 people wounded in a wave of explosions of communication devices and handheld radios. There's a video I watched yesterday where it says the latest prank in Lebanon, and the guy's watching TV and his friends run in and throw a handheld radio by his feet and he screams and runs for cover. That's literally their reality right now. Israel said they were going to push them back into the Stone Age. They need little pigeons with notes tied to legs now and hope that those pigeons don't have bombs strapped to them when they purchase the pigeons. That's how bad the situation is, because they've constantly attacked and prodded and pushed Israel, and now Israel is starting to follow through with, let me put you back in the dark ages without technology. Hezbollah says all red lines have been crossed. There will be a devastating response to Israel's declaration of war. Never mind the thousands and thousands and thousands of rockets sent into Israel, which is apparently not a declaration of war. That's just a friendly hello. But Israel responding now properly, that's a declaration of war, because obviously everything's got to be Israel's fault. During the speech delivered on Thursday, Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah publicly declared all red lines crossed by the enemy. Nasrallah said they had witnessed this week a declaration of war by Israel. In a statement Wednesday, Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant said the center of gravity in the Israel-Hamas war was moving north to Lebanon. He said more military units and resources are being sent to the border all the time. This is not Hamas. We're dealing with something different and we are preparing accordingly, he said. We are witnessing extreme chaos in the Middle East, but what we have seen so far is just the beginning of the next all-out war with Hezbollah. 8 killed and 2,800 injured in Operation Below the Belt. Hezbollah has vowed revenge. Hezbollah said that 2 members killed are among the dead. A young girl, the daughter of a Hezbollah member, was also killed after the pager exploded in her parents' home. Health Minister Firas Abiad said hospitals continue receiving wounded and they're overwhelmed. Lebanon's Hezbollah promised retaliation, blaming Israel for the pagers, which obviously was Israel. Many of the fighters and Iran's envoy to Beirut hurt or killed. Hezbollah officials speaking on condition of anonymity said the detonation of the pagers was the biggest security breach for the group in nearly a year of conflict with Israel. Chaos for them. They were not expecting that. Absolute madness that something like that could take place and hit them so hard. The clever thing now for Israel would be, in the wake of this confusion, this chaos, the overwhelmed hospitals, most of Hezbollah's leadership taken down, to attack and sort this out once and for all and be done. They wait too long and give Hezbollah time to regroup, get more forces in and recover. It's going to be bad. But we'll see. Israel is constantly attacking. They're aiming for leaders and they're doing surgical strikes as we watch. So this is developing. Israel thwarts Iranian plot to assassinate Benjamin Netanyahu. Iran plotted to assassinate the Prime Minister and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and Shin Bet Director Ronan Bar, according to them. I think there's way more than just 1 or 2 plans like that, and I think they regularly have to thwart those kind of attacks. Iran's ring of fire around Israel is tightening. The Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Shiite militias in Syria and Iraq, and the terrorist organizations in Gaza, Judea, and Samaria. And then for years, Iran has been equipping them for the very showdown which is now taking place. Hamas promises to further its revenge against Israel in latest video. They released a video on Wednesday night that Israel's aggression against Palestinians in Gaza will daily double the bill of revenge against Israelis. The video featured various clips of Hamas terrorists attacking Israel from the early 2000s. Israel's war cabinet has greenlit the offensive war against Hezbollah and sent their elite brigade north. Invasion soon. IDF moves thousands of troops to northern border. Elite IDF division transferred to Lebanese border amidst threat of all-out war between Israel and the Hezbollah terror group. Rafah, over 300 terrorists killed and a rocket warehouse destroyed. IDF forces in the Tel Sultan neighborhood eliminated over 300 terrorists, the majority of Hamas Tel Sultan's battalion's chain of command. They also found an entire warehouse containing arms, sniper rifles, magazines, anti-tank missiles, grenades, and so forth, and blew it sky high. So huge victories. Then you get this. Pentagon concerned that Israel is close to launching a ground war in Lebanon. Hezbollah and her enemies Israel's other enemies, have been attacking Israel non-stop, incessantly, day and night. That the north is largely uninhabited because the civilians can't be there and can't live in their homes because rockets and missiles and drones are constantly falling on them. That's fine, no concern. It's just Israel. Who cares about the Jews? But we're really concerned that Israel might do something. Israel should stand there and get punched in the face repeatedly, blood streaming down the nose, punch, punch, punch. Everyone's fine. Everything's fine. You just stand there and take it. But the minute Israel reaches for a weapon to retaliate, whoa, Israel is escalating. Do you see how twisted, evil, and upside down the situation really is? Even before the hundreds of widely dispersed detonations Tuesday and Wednesday, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin told other senior Pentagon officials in a Monday meeting he feared Israel would soon launch an offensive. After months of back and forth rocket and air attacks with Hezbollah, they might actually do something. U.S. alarm about a possible invasion intensified since the brazen below-the-belt operation. I am very concerned about this spiraling out of control, a senior defense official said, echoing comments since Tuesday by other Pentagon aides. Out of control. Wasn't it out of control when the civilians in the north couldn't go home? Wasn't it out of control when Hezbollah consistently all the time fires rockets, drones, and missiles into Israel that they're not at war with? Wasn't that out of control? No, because that's not Israel. As long as Israel doesn't do anything, because then it'll be out of control. What? Israel's quick solution to the hostage crisis. Now, I personally think this is the deal they should have put on the table right after October 7, and they should have acted on this deal immediately, and that would have been that. Details including all hostages released at once in exchange for an Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, Hamas leaders to be exiled, and a multinational forces to oversee the day after. Israel sent the United States the new deal it is willing to conclude with Hamas that would free the hostages and end the war all in a single phase. In the new deal, the hostages would be released all at once, and an as yet unknown number of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails would be freed. Now, this is interesting because when you get the rest of the stories, and I've been looking at the other stories coming out of Israel, the reason they're pushing for all the hostages released all at once is because the families of the hostages that might still be alive in captivity are saying it's going to be the same as last time. Hamas is going to release a few hostages in phase 1, and by phase 2 they'll renege on the deal, they'll run away, they'll change the terms, it'll be chaos, they won't see their people. So instead of letting this become another long outdrawn story, all or nothing, all at once. In addition, safe passage to a third country will be guaranteed for Hamas head Yahya Sinwar, which he recently insisted be part of the deal, and for all terrorists who want to leave Gaza, which could number in the thousands. Now, some people might say, but wait up, that's a bad deal. What the heck, they get to walk? No, you're dealing with Israel here. They don't forget. They know exactly who you are. Mossad is watching. They'll watch where you go. They'll watch where you are. They will follow you and keep tabs on you. It might be a week from the day that you leave. It might be a month. It might be a year. You'll be having your cappuccino and your waffle, and a bullet will find you, or poison will find you, or your cell phone will explode, or something interesting will happen. But these people's lives are forfeit. That much I can guarantee you. It's just a matter of time of when Israel will deal with them at their leisure. So yes, this could work as part of this deal. The process of demilitarization, meaning the destruction of Hamas' huge arsenal of weapons, would commence immediately upon their departure and the withdrawal of the Israeli military forces from the Strip. A multinational force would then oversee Gaza's disarmament and eventually reconstruction. If the deal is not executed within the listed time frame, so they've got a time limit to agree to this deal, the proposal states that the IDF will be allowed to return and recommence the war. Bam. Over, deal destroyed. We are going to go in and do this the hard way, and then we're finished. So again, I think brilliant that they've gone about it this way, and let's see what happens. It's definitely going to be worth watching what the outcome is. Is Yahya going to take the bait with his buddies and get the heck out of Dodge as fast as possible, thinking he's dodged a bullet that's just circling and waiting for the right moment to find him? Then the big one, the big news, the ridiculous one, is this UN General Assembly resolution. UN General Assembly passes resolution calling for Jerusalem Old City to be Jew-free. Jerusalem, the Old City. It is a Jewish place with Jewish history, biblical history, proof, but it needs to be Jew-free. The Palestinian-fronted resolution passed by a wide margin, obviously because the United Nitwits is anti-Israel, demanding the Israeli army and Jewish residents evacuate to pre-1949 lines within a year. Jerusalem's Old City, in addition to Judea and Samaria, must be Judean reigned within a year, according to a Palestinian drafted resolution which the UN General Assembly passed on Wednesday. Jerusalem Old City, Judea and Samaria is pretty much everywhere Jesus was regularly and preached regularly, but it should be Jew-free. See the problem here? The resolution passed by 124 to 14 margin, because the United Nitwits is anti-Israel, with 43 abstentions, meant to give force to a July advisory opinion by the International Court of Justice, which declared Israeli presence illegal in any area over the 1949 armistice line. It bans arms sales to the IDF of any equipment that would be expected reasonably to be used in the territory over the 1949 lines, and calls for a boycott of all products produced by Jews in those areas. But weapons to terrorists are fine, and they can use them anywhere because they don't care about lines. The resolution text lacks any mention of Israeli security concerns, historic ties, biblical ties to the land, or Hamas terror attacks in Israel on October 7, because all those things are for Israel and in Israel's defense. And they're not there to defend Israel or help Israel. They're there to destroy Israel and be an enemy of Israel. And they prove that every single time they get together, earning that moment that's coming, that God has promised is coming. And I'll touch on that in the end. Conservative Christians blast the UN vote to force Israel out of the biblical homeland. They also warned Secretary General seeking unprecedented emergency powers, threatening the US and Israeli sovereignty. The overwhelming vote by the United Nations General Assembly this week, demanding Israel fully evacuate the West Bank within 12 months or face massive international economic sanctions and arms embargoes, has infuriated Israeli officials who regard Judea and Samaria not as the West Bank, but as their biblical homeland, which it is. It has also outraged pro-Israel evangelical and conservative leaders around the world, and particularly in the United States, who also view Judea and Samaria as part of the land God gave to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, not Muhammad. And the nation Israel is who it belongs to. Bachmann described what Secretary Guterres and the UN General Assembly are trying to do as a betrayal of Israel's sovereignty. They're weighing in on the war. They're putting their finger on the scale of the war, and they're putting the full brunt of the UN behind the terrorists who want to see Israel destroyed and all Jews killed. The UN is very clear about their intention, Bachmann added. They intend to have each of the nations on earth give a portion of their national sovereignty to the United Nations, so that the United Nations can make decisions that will impact all nations on earth. This is unprecedented. Firstly, the immediate threat posed by this is it delegitimizes Israel again and in their own territory. And that will only further feed the appetite of her enemies to seek, with this kind of mandate from the UN, to destroy Israel completely. Secondly, there is the problem that Guterres, who says he will act on this vote, is about to get new powers to do just that in the upcoming summit that lies ahead. So we know, as angry as this makes me, that this is prophetic and part of end times and how the world is going to be with Israel. But I take my consolation from scriptures like this. Joel 3, verse 1 and 2. For behold, in those days, at that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations, the United Nations, the lot of them, all of them, every nation, and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of judgment. And I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. They have also divided up my land. It is God's land, and that is the number one problem with all their scheming and problems and the way they're trying to steal and take and fake history and claim what is not theirs, because it belongs to God Most High. It is His land that they are trying to divide. And then Genesis 12 verse 3, which we see playing out every day in all these nations, including mine where I live. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. That scripture is in effect in perpetuity always. And we see it proving itself again and again and again. So with all that news, with everything you've heard now, with everything you know, and like I say, this is a fraction of what's happening, and it's happening so quickly, so constantly, and so hourly. I'm updating regularly on Telegram, and we're all sharing there as well as it goes down. Go and join and watch if you want even more news out of Israel. Israel is God's prophetic time clock. When that kicked into being in May 1948, everyone should have realized we are that last generation, ha'akaron, and started looking up and seeing what's happening in the world, because everything from there has been accelerating and getting faster and faster and faster. The speed picking up so drastically at the moment because it's going downhill. And if you roll something downhill, it starts off slow, but the further it goes, the faster it gets, and it starts bouncing and skipping large stretches and hitting again and again. That's where we're at prophetically in the world right now. The speed with which things are happening is ridiculous, because we're out of runway, we're out of time, we're ready to leave. The restraint is about to be removed. Everything is about to kick off. And that is why there's such an urgency for us to pray for Israel, pray for the nations, spread the gospel, share the truth, give Jesus to everyone who needs Jesus. So pray for Israel. Stand on the side of God and preach and teach and share and love and shine your light in a time of darkness, because time is up. Shalom.